Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a really ambitious piece. It's called The Soul Cartography, Mapping the Invisible Architectures of Collective Being.
Yes, from the Spiritual Seek, dated May 7th, 2025. And what's so fascinating is how it tries to map things. We don't usually see these deep, sort of spiritual characteristics of different cultural groups.
Right, but not like rigid boxes, more like living patterns.
Exactly. Living, evolving constellations, as they put it. And, it acknowledges right away that this isn't standard empirical science.
It's drawing from anthropology, psychology, religious studies, a much wider net.
To try and understand these, well, invisible currents of collective consciousness, that's really the mission here.
And you brought this article to our attention, and it just sparked so many questions, didn't it? About how we see ourselves, how we see others on a deeper level.
It really did. There's a quote right at the start that sets the tone beautifully. The soul of a people is like water. It takes the shape of its container, yet remains itself, carries the memory of every shore it has touched, and moves with currents invisible to the eye.
Wow. That really captures it, this idea of something fluid yet having its own essence and history.
Precisely. And then the article goes into these different spiritual technologies, these unique ways consciousness seems to adapt across regions.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, the Eastern Asian soul, described as dancing with the void.
Right. The core idea here is a collective consciousness that has this really intimate relationship with emptiness, shunyata,
But emptiness not as just.
nothingness.
Right,
No.
not in a negative way. It's more like a fertile emptiness, the source from which things arise.
The article uses the Raijinji temple garden in Kyoto as a metaphor, that dry landscape garden.
Yeah, the one with the 15 stones in the sand. And the crucial point is, from wherever you stand, you can't see all 15 stones at once.
So the power is in what's not seen, in the space around the stones. Exactly. The empty space is potent. It suggests absence is as significant as presence, maybe more so.
And you see that in Chinese landscape painting too, right? The negative space.
Absolutely. And in the Japanese idea of ma, that meaningful pause, that productive emptiness, it gives everything else its shape and depth.
There's also that quote from Dujin, the Zen master, if you walk in the mist, you get wet.
Simple but profound. It implies that this emptiness, this void, isn't just passive. It has substance. It affects you, changes you.
It's transformative.
Yes. And this orientation seems to shape their view of time, too. Not linear, like often in the West.
More like a spiral.
A spiral, exactly. Cyclical, always moving, but maybe not repeating in exactly the same way. Think of the I Ching hexagrams or the idea of dynastic cycles in China.
Constant change, constant renewal. The article brings up Senno-riki's tea houses.
Oh, right, with the tiny entrances.
Yeah, forcing even samurai to bow down, to shed their status before entering.
It's like physically enacting, stepping out of time, out of social roles, into that timeless moment, into the void, in a sense.
And maybe that connects to how these cultures have shown this resilience, this ability to maintain continuity through huge disruptions, like the Meiji Restoration or China absorbing influences.
It could be. That capacity to let go of the old form, perhaps, to allow something new while retaining an essence. But there's a shadow side.
Ah, yes, the shadow aspect. What's that here?
Well, it's when the form becomes rigid. Ritual precision without the understanding behind it.
Like going through the motions.
Exactly. Alan Watts called it the tyranny of ritual without understanding. The outward practice loses its connection to the inner meaning, to that emptiness.
Okay. But there's wisdom even in the shadow.
The article suggests so. That the form itself, approached mindfully, can actually be a gateway back to the emptiness it originally pointed towards.
That's interesting. It ends the section with a Li Bai quote.
Oh, the poem. The birds have vanished into the sky, and now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and I, until only the mountain remains.
A powerful image of just presence, beingness within that void. Okay, let's shift gears now to the African polyphonic soul.
Yeah, this is a fascinating contrast. It talks about a polyphonic consciousness.
Polyphonic, like multiple voices.
Exactly. The ability to hold multiple rhythms, multiple voices, multiple realities even, all at the same time, without needing them to resolve into one single tune.
The analogy used is West African polyrhythmic music, isn't it?
It is. You have these different time signatures interlocking, creating this incredibly rich, complex texture.
Yeah.
But they don't merge into one simple beat. They coexist.
So a consciousness that embraces complexity, multiplicity as just the way things are.
Precisely. It resonates with concepts like the Yoruba idea of Otel,
Which is,
often translated as power, life force, the ability to make things happen. But it's understood to flow through many different channels and beings simultaneously. Or look at Dogon cosmology, this intricate web connecting human bodies, buildings, stars.
Everything linked but distinct within the whole system.
Yes, and this polyphonic quality showed incredible resilience, didn't it? Especially during the transatlantic slave trade.
Right. The article points to Vodou in Haiti, Candomblé in Brazil.
As examples of preserving core African spiritual ways while also incorporating other elements. Syncretism, born from this polyphonic capacity.
There's that Haitian proverb mentioned, beyond mountains, more mountains, speaks to that endurance, doesn't it?
It really does. And their relationship with time is different too, especially ancestral time.
How so?
Ancestors aren't just historical figures, they're present. They participate in community life and decisions. John Mbedi's phrase, "the dead are not dead, they are living dead," captures it perfectly.
Wow. So a continuous presence, a flow of influence.
Yes. And you see it in the Congolese idea of Kempa Vitae, life force never dies. And of course, the South African concept of Ubuntu.
I am because we are.
Exactly. A fundamentally collective consciousness. The self is defined through relationship, through the community.
Now the shadow aspect here.
The article suggests that this very ability to hold multiple perspectives might sometimes make unified, centralized action more challenging. And this was unfortunately exploited during colonialism.
A difficult point, but the wisdom lies in that interconnectedness itself.
Yes, and the concluding symbol is the Ghanaian Adinkra symbol, Mpatapo,
A knot.
the knot with no beginning and no end. It symbolizes reconciliation, peace, the harmonization of differences, finding unity within the multiplicity.
Beautiful. Okay, moving across the globe now to the oceanic fluid consciousness.
This describes a consciousness shaped by island life, by the vastness of the Pacific. It's adapted to living on the boundary, especially between land and sea.
And the prime example is the traditional Polynesian wayfinding, right?
Absolutely incredible. Navigating huge stretches of open ocean, reading swells, stars, winds, without instruments. People like Malpialag could apparently feel an island's presence from miles away.
It suggests a totally different kind of sensing, a different way of knowing the world.
It really does. And for this consciousness, the ocean isn't a barrier.
It's connective tissue.
Exactly. It links the islands. The Tongan concept of va is key here.
Right.
It's the space between, but it's not empty space. It's space that relates, that connects. Albert Wentz, quote, nails it. Not space that separates, but space that relates.
So relationships exist in the space between things.
Yes, and that changes how you perceive distance, too. Think of the Hawaiian idea of AKA.
The energetic cord.
Right, believed to connect beings, even across vast distances. Physical separation doesn't necessarily break the connection. And those long genealogical chants tracing connections across island groups.
Incredible feats of memory, but also reflecting that sense of connection.
And this fluidity fosters adaptability. Pacific cultures often integrated new things, like Christianity, by weaving them into their existing worldview, finding points of connection.
The Maori proverb, turn your face to the sun and the shadows fall behind you. That speaks to embracing the new, perhaps.
Embracing the new while staying rooted, and boundaries themselves are seen differently. Not as hard lines, but as zones of exchange. The shore, for example.
Neither land nor sea, but both. A transition zone.
Exactly. You even see it in the significance of boundaries in traditional tattoo patterns.
So the shadow aspect.
It arises when this fluid way of being meets rigid systems that demand fixed identities, fixed territories.
Yeah.
Colonial powers often just couldn't grasp this fluidity.
A fundamental mismatch.
Yes. But that fluidity also became a source of resilience, allowing for syncretic adaptations that kept ancient knowledge alive.
And the symbol here, the Marshall Islands stick charts.
Perfect symbol. Those intricate maps of ocean swells, they represent embodied knowledge, understanding the dynamic interplay of islands and ocean. Not static, but flowing.
Amazing. Okay, heading north now. Nordic threshold consciousness.
This focuses on the cultures of Northern Europe, suggesting a consciousness highly attuned to boundaries, transitions, liminal spaces, the in-between.
Like the Old Norse idea of landvetir.
Yeah.
Land spirits.
Yes, spirits often associated with boundaries. And think about the Vikings removing the dragon heads from their ships before landing on friendly shores, showing respect for that threshold crossing.
And holding the thing, the assembly, at liminal spots or during twilight.
Exactly. As if recognizing that special insight or truth emerges from those transitional times and places. And the folklore is full of beings living between worlds.
Hold du folk. forest spirits, nis.
They're not just stories. They reflect this deep cultural sensitivity to where realities might overlap or intersect.
And the landscape itself plays a role. The extreme seasons.
Definitely. The article suggests this fostered qualities like Finnish sisu.
That inner grit, psychological resilience through hardship.
Yes. Enduring extremes builds a certain kind of strength and societal resilience.
It also mentions a particular relationship with mystery.
Yeah, not necessarily trying to conquer or eliminate mystery, but being comfortable dwelling at its edge, finding a balance. The Swedish concept of lagom fits here.
Just enough. Not too much, not too little.
Seeking equilibrium, the Havamal quote. The middle path makes for the best journey.
But the shadow.
Is when that sensitivity to thresholds hardens into rigid boundary defense, sharp divisions, exclusion. Viking raids could be seen as one extreme expression.
And maybe modern isolationism as another.
Possibly. But the wisdom within that is recognizing that boundaries also need to be permeable for healthy exchange.
And the concluding idea here is the Norse concept of wed.
Destiny, fate, but understood as something constantly being woven and rewoven, both fixed and changeable, captures that threshold dynamic. And the rune Nothes. Need constrains freedom, but creates strength. Constraint itself forging resilience.
Fascinating. Let's move now to the Middle Eastern textual consciousness.
Here, the idea is a consciousness, where language, especially sacred text, is seen as fundamental to reality itself. The architecture of reality, in a way.
Like Islamic calligraphy, it's more than just writing.
Oh, absolutely. It's art, it's rhythm, it's mathematics, it's seen as a mystical portal. Words have immense power, though Rumi reminds us.
Words are a pretext. It is the inner bond that draws one person to another.
Right. The words point to something deeper, but they are the crucial pointers, the framework.
And the Jewish tradition of midrash.
Continuous interpretation, finding new layers of meaning in the text across generations. It treats the text as alive. Rabbi Ben Bag saying about the Torah, turn it and turn it again, for everything is in it.
Infinite depth.
And the Arabic concept of balaka, eloquence, that actually transforms the listener.
Yeah.
Language shaping reality. Al-Jahi said, perfect expression makes the distant near.
That really emphasizes the power attributed to the word. And how does this affect time perception?
Often sees past, present, future in dialogue. The Passover Seder is a great example. Participants relive the Exodus, making the past present through story.
Actively engaging with history in the now. And this consciousness fostered incredible textual memory.
Yes, preserving knowledge was paramount. Think of the Arabic scholars preserving Greek texts when they were lost to Europe. A profound respect for the written word.
But the shadow aspect.
Is when the letter of the text gets separated from the spirit. Literalism that misses the deeper meaning. Maimonides warned against that.
So the form overshadows the essence.
Potentially. But the wisdom is the constant need for interpretation, for finding the contemporary meaning. The concept of tawil, interpreting by returning to the source, the deeper meaning.
Seeing the apparent text as a guide to the hidden truth.
Exactly. Abu Yaqub al-Hajistani. The apparent is the guide to the hidden, and the hidden is the truth of the apparent. Words as doorways.
Okay, let's turn now to indigenous circle consciousness.
This describes a worldview common in many indigenous traditions, seeing reality as cyclical, relational, interconnected, a web, not a line or a pyramid.
The Lakota phrase mitakuyoyasi captures this, right?
Beautifully. All my relations, extending kinship beyond humans to encompass everything. Black Elk's vision of the sacred hoop holding all other hoops.
A vision of unity. And this shows up physically.
Yes, in circular dwellings like hogans or tippis and ceremonial circles. And temporally, too, time is cycles like the seasons. The Hopi idea of Koyaanisqatsi.
Life out of balance, underscoring the need for harmony within those cycles.
In the Australian Aboriginal concept of dreamtime, Al-Sharinga.
Not just the past, but an ongoing creation.
Exactly. An ongoing process everyone participates in. Bill Nighy's words, this earth I never damage, I look after. Like brother and mother. Deep reciprocity.
Reciprocity seems key here, giving and receiving in balance.
Yes, like in potlatch traditions or the Andean concept of Ayani or Maori Koha. It's fundamental to maintaining the web.
And the relationship to place is different too, not ownership.
No, more like belonging to the place. Seeing the land as a community member. Winona LaDuke on the Anishinaabe concept of Anaseki. It's about that deep spiritual bond.
So the shadow aspect must involve clashes with linear systems.
Profoundly so. Colonization often involved imposing linear extractive models onto these circular reciprocal systems, causing immense disruption and misunderstanding.
But the wisdom of the circle feels so relevant now.
Absolutely. The article suggests it holds keys to healing fragmentation, finding sustainable ways of living. The medicine wheel is the perfect symbol.
Balance, harmony, interconnectedness, Vine Deloria Jr.'s quote about the circle.
The symbol of the seamless web of being. It captures that perfectly.
Okay, next, the Latin American syncretic soul.
This highlights a consciousness adept at weaving together different, even contradictory elements into something new and whole. An alchemy of sorts.
We see this in religious syncretism. Santeria, Candomblé, Day of the Dead.
Prime examples. Blending indigenous, African, European beliefs and practices into vibrant new traditions. Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz's quote, fits. I don't study to know more, but to ignore less. It's about integration.
Expanding understanding by bringing things together. And the Mexican idea of mestizaje.
That cultural blending, seen as a source of richness. And think of magical realism in literature.
Where the miraculous and the everyday just coexist. Garcia Marquez. The most frightening thing about miracles is that they happen.
Exactly, an acceptance of multiple layers of reality operating at once.
And the relationship with suffering. Is it different here?
Often seen not just as negative, but as potentially transformative. The Chilean idea of sobrevivencia over living, surviving with depth, and Borges imagining paradise as a library, finding refuge in meaning even amidst struggle.
Finding creative ways through difficulty seems key, like the Brazilian Jeitinho.
Yes, that clever improvisation, finding a way around obstacles, and the Andean concept of Pachacudi upheaval that ultimately restores balance. Seeing change, even disruptive change, as part of a larger cycle.
And the shadow.
Syncretism can sometimes become superficial layering, a dissociation, maybe as a coping mechanism under oppression. Not true integration.
But the wisdom lies in that meeting point.
Yes. Gloria Anzaldua's concept of la frontera, the borderland, is crucial. She saw it not as a dividing line, but as this fertile, tense, creative space where different realities meet and generate something new.
The space of transformation. Okay, moving towards the Indian subcontinent. Indian layered consciousness.
This describes perceiving reality in nested dimensions, not flat, but layered, with different levels interpenetrating.
The Vedantic concept of the koshas is central here, right? The 5 sheaths.
Exactly. A map of the layers of being, from the physical body inwards to the core self, the Atman. Adi Shankar's image of the self reflected clearly in the intellect, like in a clean mirror.
Suggests these layers mediate our experience of reality, and this shows up in temples.
Yes. Hindu temple architecture often guides you through layers, from the outer world to the inner sanctum. And in classical Indian dance, the mudras.
Hand gestures connecting outer movement to inner states.
Precisely, the Abhinaya Dharpana saying, where the hand moves, the eyes follow. Connecting physical, mental, emotional, and essence rasa. It's holistic.
And time is layered too, the yugas.
Vast cosmic cycles operating alongside our immediate experience. The Mahabharata, for instance, unfolds across these immense timescales.
So identity is also seen as layered.
Yes, recognizing the everyday ego, the ahamkara, as just one layer, provisional. The deeper reality is at man, the unchanging self beneath. The Upanishadic phrase, tattvamasi.
That thou art, pointing to that underlying unity.
Yes. Now, the shadow aspect is clear.
The caste system.
When those layers become rigid social hierarchy, causing immense suffering and injustice, a distortion of the underlying principle.
But the wisdom is in recognizing different levels or modes without freezing them into hierarchy.
Perhaps, and the yantra symbol encapsulates this layered view, that geometric diagram.
As a map of the cosmos and the self.
Exactly. As the Kulanava Tantra says, as is the cosmic body, so is the personal body, as is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. Everything reflecting everything else across layers.
Okay, almost there. The Euro-Mediterranean dialectical soul.
This focuses on a consciousness shaped by and comfortable with productive opposition. The idea that truth emerges from the tension between different viewpoints.
Back to the ancient Greeks, dialectic.
Foundational. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Using dialogue and argument to refine understanding. Heraclitus. Opposition brings concord. Out of discord comes the fairest harmony.
Seeing conflict or tension as potentially creative.
Yes, and you see it reflected in the dynamic balance of forces in cathedral architecture, or the development of perspective in Renaissance art integrating multiple viewpoints. Leonardo stressed the need for reason.
And the role of doubt.
Seen as essential, almost. Not a weakness, but a necessary step towards stronger conviction. Think Descartes. It fuels self-correction. Critique is progress.
It manifests in music, too. Counterpoint.
Good example. Independent lines creating harmony through their interaction. And the adversarial legal system is built on this dialectical principle.
So the shadow side is,
When dialectic decays into just opposition for opposition's sake, polarization, entrenched conflict that doesn't move towards synthesis or resolution.
getting stuck in the argument.
Exactly. But the core wisdom remains. Constructive engagement with opposing ideas is powerful. Montesquieu's separation of powers is based on this balancing opposing forces, and Gramsci on crisis as an interregnum.
Where the old is dying and the new struggles to be born, that tension again.
Precisely. It's a consciousness shaped by navigating that creative tension.
Finally, the nomadic horizon consciousness.
This is about a consciousness adapted to movement, to open space, finding orientation not in fixed points, but in relation to the shifting horizon.
Like Bedouin or Sami navigation.
Incredible skills.
Yeah.
And that Tuareg proverb, better to own the horizon than to own a house, says it all, doesn't it?
Freedom and perspective over fixed possession.
Yes. And this is reflected in portable architecture, the skiriger, the Bedouin tent, sacred space that moves, and oral poetry as a kind of navigational tool, carrying knowledge and orientation.
Hafez. I am a hole in a flute that the Christ's breath moves through. A sense of flow.
Perhaps. And wealth isn't static accumulation, it's mobility, adaptability. The Kazakh proverb, a good horse opens all doors, valuing what enables movement.
Resilience through adaptability. The Mongolian noodle, seasonal migration.
A deep attunement to the rhythms of the environment, moving with them.
The shadow aspect here seems inevitable in the modern world.
Conflict with settled territorial systems. Forced settlement has been devastating for many nomadic cultures.
Losing that connection to movement and the horizon.
Yes, but the wisdom is profound that security can also lie in adaptability, in the freedom to move. The astrolabe is the symbol here.
Navigating by the stars, finding your way across open space, Omar Khayyam.
The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on, embracing flow and change.
So that brings us through this incredible, sweeping cartography. It's crucial to stress, isn't it? These aren't definitive boxes.
Not at all. They're glimpses, models, ways of understanding these deep, often invisible currents that shape cultures. And every single pattern has its gifts, its strengths, and its shadows, its challenges.
And today, these patterns aren't separate anymore, are they? In our interconnected world, they're constantly meeting, mixing, influencing each other.
Absolutely. Which raises the question, maybe the real wisdom now is recognizing the multiplicity within ourselves, the capacity to access different modes depending on the situation.
Like Jean Gebser's idea of an integral consciousness, being able to hold and integrate these different ways of knowing.
Exactly. It reminds me of Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. A place beyond these categories.
Because ultimately, this diversity isn't about which way is right. It's more like complementary technologies, different tools for engaging with reality.
Beautifully put. Complementary technologies. And each one offers unique resources, unique wisdom for the challenges we all face collectively.
It's like a symphony of souls, as the article hints, each playing its part.
A symphony, or Teilhard de Chardin's noosphere, the thinking layer of the earth becoming more interconnected.
And it brings us back to that ancient Sanskrit verse, Ekam sat vipra bahuta vadanti.
Truth is one. The wise call it by many names.
So this deep dive into soul cartography, it really reveals such profound beauty in how diversely humanity makes sense of the world. For you listening, think about this. In light of all these different perspectives, these invisible architectures, what new dimensions of understanding have opened up for you? What insights into our collective being resonate most deeply now?